Craving the perfect holiday snack? Check out Farmer Bill's Biltong. Think beef jerky, but better. No sugar, no preservatives, just pure animal protein goodness. Crafted from premium grass-fed beef or bison and air-dried to perfection, Farmer Bill's Biltong is nutrient-packed, energy-dense, and perfect for an on-the-go treat or a standout snack for your next party. My favorite is the original bison, but the other flavors like the original beef, smokehouse, and spicy chili had me second-guessing that choice more than once. Visit FarmerBillsProvisions.com to grab a 1-pound slab or a variety pack and use code BIZBIT10 for 10% off. Farmer Bill's Biltong, don't be the 2-liter guy at this year's Christmas party. Welcome to the Business Bitcoinization Show, the show dedicated to helping you enrich your life and grow your business with Bitcoin, the hardest money on planet Earth. I'm your host, Josh Friedeman, and our guest today is John, who's the founder of Zaprite. Now, Zaprite is a company that helps businesses with Bitcoin invoicing, project management, and expense tracking. It's in its early days, currently in beta mode, and right now, maybe not in the future, but right now, it's free to check out and use. I could imagine Zaprite being a tool that many companies will use as it begins to offer a robust alternative to companies like Quickbooks and Square and other companies like that. Now, before we get to our interview with John, we do have this week's Bitcoin Meetup Spotlight, and this week we're going to Asheville, North Carolina. Asheville Bitcoiners is the place to be to talk Bitcoin in Western North Carolina. They invite plebs, maximalists, and no-coiners alike to stop by their friendly gathering at Zillicoa Beer Company every other Thursday from 6 to 8 p.m. You can find more information about Asheville Bitcoiners on their meetup.com page. Join the group to get event details and updates. Also, join the Asheville Bitcoiners Telegram group and follow them on Twitter at AVL Bitcoiners. That Twitter page is linked below, along with a list of other Bitcoin meetups across the United States. To find one near you, follow the link. You'll be able to look by state and by city, and there you'll find the best person to get in contact with for more information. One other thing that's worth mentioning is that the organizer for the Asheville meetup actually created the Bitcoin game. If you want a fun way to introduce Bitcoin to people, especially who enjoy board games, this would be a great way to do it. We actually played the game a couple meetings ago at my local Bitcoin meetup and enjoyed comparing the incentives of the game to the incentives of Bitcoin in real life. So once again, the Bitcoin board game for all your Bitcoin board gaming needs. Now, we're going to get to our interview with John right after this. Business owners, unlock the benefits Bitcoin has to offer your business with the Bitcoin for Business Quick Start Guide. This 27-page guide highlights the 6 ways you can grow your business with Bitcoin. Check it out in the show notes. John, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me, Josh. Really appreciate it. Good to be here.
So I like to start off every single interview with a few questions that help us to get to know you a little bit better and give us some insight for our own lives. So you ready for these?
Absolutely. Let's go.
When and how did you first learn about Bitcoin?
So the when is easy. That was 2013, middle of 2013. The how, I wish I could remember. I think I read an article. I'm pretty sure it was like an article about, Silk Road or Mt. Gox or something. And it really piqued my interest. And I started reading a little bit more. I started to try and buy Bitcoin. That was really difficult to do, especially up in Canada in 2013. But I kind of spent a couple of months like digging in, downloaded, the full blockchain, was running my own node, writing down my private keys, uppercase, lowercase, all this kind of stuff on a piece of paper. And just trying to buy a little bit of Bitcoin here and there to figure it out. And then for whatever reason, kind of just lost interest in it and then came back again in around 2016. And that's when I really kind of started to pay a lot more attention. Got swept up into all the ICO, altcoin madness of 2017 and came out the other side of hard in Bitcoin Maxi. And then, so that's pretty much been my journey into it. Yeah.
What's an insight or a fact about Bitcoin that you wish that everyone understood?
For me, I think it's all about how it lowers your time preference and just makes you a better person all around. And it just has these profound effects on every aspect of your life. Your health, your education, your relationships. It just changes you fundamentally as a human being. So putting aside, the the fix the money, fix the world aspect of it. I think it's kind of like it wants you to fix yourself. And you have this like much lower time preference about everything. And you start to have, these hope for the future and these grander visions, and you want to become like a healthier person, more educated person, a better person. You start to shape your relationships around like lower time preference. And I think that's something that, if people knew that at the start and didn't concentrate so much on the charting and the money, like that would be an awesome intro for people.
What's the Bitcoin resource that you most recommend to other people?
For me, honestly, it's all about in-person meetups. Just getting together with other Bitcoiners, talking, trying different things, building different things, attending meetups, attending hackathons, just getting in there and showing up. That's really what I try to kind of promote to most people, because I think that's the number one way to get people to kind of really understand what Bitcoin is and what we're trying to do, is just to surround yourself by other like-minded people.
The next question is this: beyond Bitcoin, what's a resource or an idea that's been valuable to you or your business recently?
Again, I'm kind of going to answer two questions at one here, kind of like leads into the same kind of concept of community. Really about like building a community and recognizing that Bitcoin is a community, like grassroots, like ground up, like movement. For me, before coming down to Austin, where I'm based right now, I lived in Canada. I lived up in the mountains, small town in a ski resort, and my only connection to Bitcoin was Bitcoin Twitter. And the profound like change that I like went through when I came down to Austin and surrounded myself by like other amazing Bitcoiners and like fell into the Austin Bitcoin scene. There's meetups like every week. There's like amazing developers, other founders, investors, like just Bitcoin enthusiasts. Nothing can beat the like in real life experience of surrounding yourself by with other Bitcoiners. So for me, it's all about community. It's all about this idea of building that like solid base around yourself. And that has had like a huge effect, not just on me personally, but on the business as well. Because, like I said, Zaprite just started out as a hobby business. Like a lot of people have these kind of like small hobby businesses on the side. But really landing in Austin and dropping myself into the community had a huge effect on springboarding that business out into the real world and getting it noticed by, users and investors and things like that. So yeah, community's huge.
And now we have our final, what we call arbitrary but insightful question, and it's this: as a general life principle, is it better to ask why or why not?
For me on this one, I always try to ask why. And it's more of a kind of life reevaluation tool, like just constantly reevaluating your decisions, calibrating your life. So it's like, why am I doing this right now? Why am I walking this path? Why am I spending time with this person? Why am I building this feature in Zaprite right now? Like just constantly asking you this question of like, why? Why am I doing it? What is the benefit to it? And it kind of just forces you to keep second guessing your decisions as you go through to see if anything has changed or any material facts have changed that might change your mind. So just constantly asking why, just recalibrate yourself as you go is a really good way to live.
Meet Linkster, your premier Bitcoin-focused advisor. Linkster caters to businesses, institutions, family offices, and high-net-worth individuals. They merge your unique financial goals and needs with Linkster's Bitcoin expertise to craft your own sustainable plan to preserve and grow the value of your hard-earned profits and retained earnings. At Linkster, it's not just advice, it's tailored execution. Connect directly with the founder by visiting linkster.com. That's LYNCSTER.com. Linkster. Secure your future with Bitcoin. Today's episode of Business Bitcoinization is proudly brought to you by Velis Commerce, where the future of business technology meets Bitcoin. As we journey through the era of Bitcoin and its transformational impact on businesses, there's one name that stands out: Velis Commerce. Whether you're looking to build a cutting-edge website, a seamless mobile app, or custom software, Velis is your go-to team. They've been diving deep into the world of Bitcoin since 2014, making them one of the most experienced groups for integrating Bitcoin and Lightning payments into a variety of digital platforms. But here's what truly sets them apart. Velis Commerce doesn't just build. They bring a wealth of knowledge to ensure your project's success from day one. Their team understands the nuances of Bitcoin, ensuring that your business stays ahead of the curve. And for all business Bitcoinization listeners out there, Velis Commerce is offering a free consultation to kickstart your project the right way. So if you're ready to future-proof your business in the coming age of hyper-Bitcoinization, head over to veliscommerce.com or reach out on Twitter at veliscommerce. Let's make sure your business thrives in the Bitcoin era. So, John, we're here today to talk about Zaprite. I'm really excited to hear a little bit about what you're doing, and I think this is going to be a tool that many, if not all, businesses will need in the next 5 to 10 years. So, excited to talk about it. Maybe first of all, could you give us an overview of Zaprite and some of the things you're offering and looking to offer in the near future?
Absolutely, yeah. So, Zaprite, just to kind of give a really quick intro as to where it came about. I mentioned it was a kind of side hobby project for me for a while. And it really came out of a need that I had myself to build an invoicing tool. I started working for Bitcoin companies, earning Bitcoin 3 or 4 years ago. And I needed something that I could send out a proper professional invoice and get all the email notifications and the live price rates and calculations when somebody clicked to pay the invoice. So there was they put out all that kind of negotiation between you and the client. Like, oh, here's my Bitcoin address. And okay, well, like Bitcoin's worth this amount right now, so pay me this amount. You cut all that out if you have like a proper tool. So that's really where it came out of, is just need I had for myself. So the invoicing aspect of it was really the first kind of, feature that I built into the MVP. And that worked great. And as I started to build it out, I quickly realized that there was a big need for additional features, like along the lines of merchant tools, like POS and like checkout forms and things like that, as well as the kind of project task management side of it, and then the accounting side of it on top of that as well. So, what it is right now, like I said, the MVP has invoicing. It allows, if you're a freelancer or a contractor, you can basically, spin up a hosted payment page. You can add your branding, add your logo, connect a wallet. We've got like multiple different wallet connectors in there, so you can connect, if you're running an Umbrel or a MyNode at home, you can connect over LND or LNBits. If you've got a Strike account, you can just punch in your Strike username and that will connect right away. Or if you have even a Stripe account and you want to offer like card payments alongside the Bitcoin option as well, you can add your Stripe account. So we allow all these like wallets and accounts to be connected in from third parties, and then we allow you to have this hosted checkout payment page. Right now, like I said, the MVP, the feature that's in there is the invoicing. What we're going to do is we're going to roll that out, and we're going to have like multiple features and POS tools, merchant services tools, checkout buttons, payment links, donation pages, small e-commerce things like product links and things like that. And all of them will just funnel into this like checkout page that you've created, which allows you to basically, have all of this Bitcoin payments infrastructure without the hassle of like running your own node. You can connect something like Voltage as well if you just want to run, allow Voltage to look after your node infrastructure, and you can just connect in, and we'll just use the API to do all the payment structure to your node. So it's really about building these really simple UI UX tools that anybody can use to accept and manage Bitcoin payments, but without having to do all of the tech kind of infrastructure stuff in the background.
So we have a lot of people listening to this show who are familiar with Bitcoin, others who are just learning. So some of what you just said may have seemed like a lot. Practically speaking, how could someone begin to weave Zaprite into what they're currently doing? How much do they need to change to make that happen? Just maybe give us an idea of how easily this could be woven into the current business structure of a business out there.
Absolutely, yeah. So, the easiest kind of integration is if you are a freelancer or a contractor, which again is how I started off and what I built the product for. So that was the initial target market. Mm-hmm. If you're a freelancer or contractor, you're probably using some kind of system, maybe like Quickbooks or Square invoicing or some kind of invoicing system. So essentially, Zaprite is the same thing. We've got the Stripe credit card integrations, but we also now offer the Bitcoin payment integration as well. So, if you wanted to start using that as a freelancer contractor, it's as simple as just literally punching in your email address and signing up. That's it. After that, you can literally hit create new invoice, and you can have an invoice created in 2 minutes. That's really how simple it is. And that would be like a basic setup of maybe just dropping a Bitcoin address onto the invoice. And that's it. Add somebody's like email and then your line items on the invoice and hit send. And that's really about as simple as it is. And what happens then is when that email gets sent out and your customer pays that invoice, we will send out the notification emails. We'll send a receipt to your customer. We'll send a notification email on 0 comps in the mempool and then 1 comp when it actually gets confirmed. And then we stamp that transaction into the database. So we have a record of it, and we've got a record of the USD cost basis or whatever the fiat currency is that you denominated the invoice in. And so we have all of those details, the timestamp, the transaction ID, and everything in there. So we can actually start to build like a bigger picture of your business on top of that. So like one of the features that we'll start rolling out soon is more of an accounting side of things, where we can actually show like, well, this is how much money you brought in this month or in the last like 3 months or 6 months. And then when we kind of like build out a more robust expense tracking system as well, you can have those in. So you'll get like a much bigger kind of like, summary of how your business is actually performing on Bitcoin. So we can give you like more detailed reporting around, cost basis, profit loss, like unrealized capital gains, things like that.
So a couple of points of clarification here. First of all, is this when you are charging people who are going to pay in Bitcoin, or is this something where you can invoice in Bitcoin and dollars? For instance, could someone pay one of these invoices with a credit card? How does all of that work? Like, essentially, is this just for the Bitcoin side of business, or can this be eventually the full replacement of QuickBooks?
Yeah, so right now what happens is you can, for example, if you connect your Stripe account as well, if you're, a merchant and you have a Stripe account, you can connect that in, and then you can also connect like your Bitcoin addresses on the invoices. So when you send them out, the user, your customer can actually pay that in either using a card, and it will go through Stripe. We use Stripe Connect, and it will just like deposit straight into your own Stripe account, or they can pay it in Bitcoin. So your customer actually has both options right now, and they can kind of choose which one. We will be adding features in there on top of that in the future, which kind of incentivize users to actually pay with Bitcoin. So you can maybe add like, a custom discount on like Bitcoin or Lightning payments. So it kind of like, when the user lands on the hosted payment page, they might see a little like 5 or 10% discount badge on the Bitcoin side of things. So they like might be incentivized to kind of check that out and see like, oh, well, maybe I can get myself some Bitcoin and pay this because I'm going to save 10%. So yeah, I mean, at the moment, either they can pay, as I said, in either card or Bitcoin. One of the things we'd really love to solve in the future is actually having the invoices paid in fiat and then auto converted into Bitcoin for the Zaprite end user. So no matter what the payment is for the invoice or the service or the product or whatever goes through the checkout form, we can have that auto convert to Bitcoin on the other side.
Okay.
There's a lot of services that currently do this, like OpenNode, IBEX, things like that. All great tools, but they're all fully KYC, fully custodial, and so what I'm trying to build is something that keeps that like more non-custodial aspect where you can connect your own wallet and be in 100% control of your own funds. And so if we can build tools around that like give the same services as those other custodial clients, hopefully we can, instill in people the importance of self-custody.
This might be a bit of a stretch connecting this question, but one of the things that you had talked about earlier was load time preference. Am I thinking right now, KYC Bitcoin is a little bit higher time preference? That might be a hot take, but I'm sort of curious here. How does Zaprite kind of work with the low time preference side of Bitcoin? And maybe for people who aren't as familiar with the high versus low time preference, you could describe that a little bit, but also how is Zaprite kind of embodying some of those low time preference aspects of Bitcoin?
Yeah, so just to give a quick overview of the low and high time preference. So high time preference means you're giving more value to the immediate present. You want that like instant gratification. You want things now. You want things like quickly. Lower time preference means you're valuing your future more. So you start to look more into the future. And as I discussed that earlier, that kind of has effects on, well, I want to become healthier. I want to become more educated. I want to save money because I have that low time preference thinking of like looking more out into my future than the high time preference thinking of like, I want that item now, or I want that like item of clothing, or I want that like piece of fast food like now. So that's kind of the general, high time preference, low time preference thinking. In terms of, the Bitcoin side of things, again, I think, really what I want to do is like, I'm really a huge advocate of self-custody and, privacy in general, but certainly self-custody and minimizing that risk of having third parties like hold the money, because, we've seen time and time again, and obviously like Satoshi talked about it, is, we're putting trust in third parties that can and have a history of like failing us. So what I really want to do is I want to build these same tools that like custodial services offer, but build them for a non-custodial marketplace. So just allow people to still keep like 100% control of their wallets, of their funds, but give them these amazing UI UX experiences on top of it as well. And it kind of like instills that low time preference thinking in them, is that like, I need to like be responsible for my own money. I need to look after my own money and my own savings and my own future, and get that like kind of ingrained in people like right from the get-go, which I think the custodial services, for all the great service that they do offer, they that's not one of the things that they heavily promote is self-custody, because obviously their business model relies on the custody side of things. So yeah, I mean, at Zaprite, if we can force people to take that lower time preference approach and like think about the self-custody aspect of it, then we're going to win for sure.
Is that anything that you would help with as far as education or partnerships? Because I saw that, on your website and even just in your answer just now, you don't provide any custodianship of Bitcoin, but obviously businesses will want to know how to take custody of it, assuming they adopt that lower time preference approach.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, as just to kind of go back on what I've said, as much as I want to promote self-custody and promote, people like look after their own funds as much as possible, I do recognize the part that these custodial providers play, which is why I'm, integrating some of these into Zaprite. If you already have like a Strike account, which is, obviously custodial, or, an IBEX or OpenNode, like we'll work with these services, we'll integrate the APIs and we'll allow you to use them, and we'll offer you these tools on top of those custodial services. But one of the things that I would really like to do is to actually like educate people around that. So I think maybe in future, we might try and, have a certain aspect of our business might be to try and like promote this idea of self-custody and have, a lot more content out there, particularly on our website and blog and things, that just runs through, how you can actually, bring your business onto a Bitcoin standard, but stay completely in control and self-custody your funds. So we might have like, a series of tutorials, videos, blog posts, things like that, that actually kind of explain a lot of the things that need to happen in order to get you there. Because we can understand it can be intimidating for a lot of new people, trying to come in, and we're trying to minimize that friction as much as possible. So, anything on the education side that can be done for that, we'll certainly look at for sure.
Going back a little bit, I'm curious, have you always had a technical background, or is that something that you've developed since Bitcoin? And also maybe talk a little bit about how this developed from a hobby. Like, it's interesting that an invoicing business was your hobby, but just kind of curious, maybe could you share some of those fill in the gaps as far as your background and how Zaprite developed from a hobby into the business that it is today?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm Irish. I grew up in Ireland. I went to art school, went to college, art college in Ireland. I did graphic design, traditional graphic design, typography, like color, texture, all those kind of things, art history. So, design for print was really where, my passion was at the beginning and what I went through school for. And then I ended up doing like an additional add-on degree in multimedia design. So when I came out of school, I very quickly went into, contracting. I worked for a couple of companies for like the first kind of 2 years when I came out of college in Ireland, but then quickly went into contracting, and very soon started to teach myself HTML, CSS, and then I started building WordPress websites, and then I started like designing custom WordPress websites myself because I had that design background, which eventually led me to learn PHP so I could actually custom build the custom sites that I was designing. And so my kind of like technical, path was like a very long and slow one. It was more just coming from the design side, was really kind of the biggest, factor on what I was doing and what I was working on. And then about, like I said, about 4 years ago at this stage, I started looking more into the UI UX end of things. And I was living in Canada, and I was using Bull Bitcoin, which is, I don't know if you've heard of it, but it's, one of the biggest exchanges, definitely the biggest probably in Canada and one of the biggest around the world, but they're like absolutely amazing service. And I basically just kind of like, did a mock-up over a weekend for, redesigning their whole web app. And I just sent it to Francis, the CEO, and I said, hey, look, long-term customer, like, love your service, but like, your design could use a bit of work. And here's something I did over the weekend. And he loved it, and he hired me to do some contract work. And that's where, the need came then to actually invoice in Bitcoin. I needed a proper invoice. I was trying to run a Casa node, one of the original Casa nodes, and I was trying to, get PTT Pay server up and running and get like URLs exposed to the public so I could send these invoices. And it was like, it was tricky for me to figure this out. So I always had this idea in the back of my head, like that I would build something like Zaprite, like a very simple invoicing tool just to kind of, figure it all out. And I'd never coded in JavaScript. I'd never built like a modern like web stack app, anything like that before. But through working with Bull Bitcoin and Verify in Montreal, I met my current technical advisor for Zaprite, Nate, and he basically helped me get Zaprite off the ground. So he, helped with the tech stack and the framework and getting everything like up and running and the CI and all that kind of stuff ready to go, and kind of walked me through how to like get started. And then I basically just kind of rolled up my sleeves and learned JavaScript and started building out the app, like I said, as a kind of side hobby project. And then eventually it kind of grew to where it is today. So that's kind of my long and slow, journey into the tech side of things. But my background is still very much design for sure.
And what would you like Zaprite to be able to do in the future? Like right now, obviously, you've been talking about the minimum viable product, but let's say a few years, maybe even within a couple of years, where would you like to see Zaprite? Like how robust of a tool would you like it to be? Or are you going to kind of stay in a particular lane and just be really good at that particular thing?
The invoicing tool that I built kind of like sparked this idea of, merchant tools in general. So as I mentioned before, like POS, checkouts, like payment links, event tickets, like donation pages, crowdfunding, things like that. All of these tools are things that people will need as we go forward, like particularly in the, the creator economy is something that's only getting bigger. So if I can build Zaprite into a tool that's extremely useful for people to be able to very quickly onboard to Bitcoin, to taking Bitcoin payments, whether they're a freelancer, a contractor, or a small business, to have those tools there that make it like so easy, just like, one-click beautiful UI UX stuff that they don't have to worry about the technical background. That's the kind of short to medium term play. And then the longer term play, I think, is the accounting side of it, because that's where, I think that whole space over the next decade is just going to like explode. We still need accounting tools, like no matter what, whether we're running our business on a fiat standard or a Bitcoin standard, every business needs to know whether they're successful or not. They need to see, their income, their expenditure, their account balances, things like that, profit, loss, unrealized gains. All of that stuff needs to be in there. And I think we have a fantastic opportunity to rebuild this stuff from the ground up on Bitcoin. I don't think it's going to be good enough to just kind of, add BTC as another ticker symbol into QuickBooks and have it as another currency in there. I think we actually need to look at building tools that, talk directly with the time chain or talk directly with your node. Because if we can do that, then like that plays nicely into the self-sovereignty aspect of it, because then we can literally just provide software and UI UX wrappers that anybody can, install on a Start9 or an Umbrel or a MyNode, and it's just connected directly to their node or to their Xpub or whatever it might be, and then they can get all of these amazing tools that just run on top of it. So that's the kind of bit that, as crazy as it sounds, excites me. I know accounting is generally not an exciting area, but I think we do have this amazing opportunity to actually build like from the ground up like some new accounting tools on Bitcoin rather than, trying to bolt Bitcoin into the existing fiat accounting tools. So I think that space is going to be great space to be in over the next decade.
Well, that was actually sort of the next question I was planning to ask, but what does Zaprite bring that something like a QuickBooks or Square doesn't currently have? Like, what can Zaprite do because of its connection to Bitcoin that may not have been possible before, or that could really help businesses in the future?
Yeah, so, I think, as I mentioned, building directly on top of Bitcoin, I think has many advantages, not just from the privacy aspect of it, but also there's just so much more in a Bitcoin transaction than there is in a fiat transaction, right? You've got inputs, outputs, fees. There's going to be a lot more things that are happening in the future around DLCs and Taproot and smart contracts and multi-sigs and things like this. So we have to be able to recognize all these different types of transactions, split them apart, look at different fees, inputs, outputs, like I mentioned. And I think there's just a much deeper integration that can be done. I think, we have programmable money, so we need to actually, be able to harness that and use it to its full potential, rather than, like I said, somebody like QuickBooks might just, throw in BTC as another ticker symbol in their dashboard, and away you go with some kind of basic features. But I think the big play is to actually just rebuild from the ground up and, learn to interact directly with the time chain and provide, the services that, we can actually do, because we have a much more powerful programmable money now.
Well, maybe before we finish up today, could you plug anything else? Maybe fill us in on anything that we haven't talked about that you want listeners to be sure they're aware of, and then also let people know where they can go to find out more about Zaprite and to sign up if they're interested in giving it a test run.
Absolutely, yeah. One of the things I guess I can finish up on is something that we kind of, talked about at the start in the 5 questions, and something that I'm kind of extremely passionate about. One of the things that, as I mentioned before, I've been in and around Bitcoin since 2013, but always in the back of my head, it was how can I get involved? How can I get involved? I want to do something, but I always said to myself, I'm not a developer. I can't do anything. I can't look at pull requests. I can't review code, and I'm not part of this scene. I'm just kind of looking from the outside. But over time, I quickly realized that everything is going to need to change in a Bitcoin world. And we're going to need skill sets from so many different people in so many different industries. So no matter what your skill set is, I think if you have a passion and you have an idea, get to your local meetups, get interacting with your local Bitcoin community and start talking to people and say, hey, I'm a Bitcoiner. This is what I do for a living. This is the idea I have. And I guarantee you're going to find people who are going to put you in touch with somebody else, or they're going to pull a small group together and say, hey, why don't you guys, there's a hackathon coming up next month. Why don't you guys sit down and try and blast out a little project together? Because that's the type of thing that I think I'm really passionate about. And I see that happening a lot in here in Austin and in Nashville. I was recently down in Nashville as well. The same type of thing is just springing up around the country. So if that's a little kind of bit of inspiration I can leave with people, is just get involved, show up, turn up at the meetups, and put yourself in there, and great things will happen. Yeah, and then on the Zaprite side of things, just hit zaprite.com, check out the website. app.zaprite.com is the app. You can sign up. You just need an email address, no KYC, and try it out. Yeah, just get in there, create an account, click around. Would love to get feedback and user requests, suggestions, things like that. And then you can find me personally on Twitter, John_Zaprite. Just hit me up if you want to help onboarding, or you got feature suggestions, or you just want to chat Bitcoin. Always there.
John, thank you so much for your time today. It's been a pleasure.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me, Josh. Appreciate it.
All right, friends, it's a wrap. Thanks for listening to this episode of the Business Bitcoinization Show. If you want to reach out, our email is info@bizbitshow.com. Also, if you haven't done so yet, go ahead and scroll on down to the show notes. There you'll find ways to connect with me and our guest, as well as our excellent sponsors who can help you succeed in your life and in your business. Keep building, keep growing, and until next time, keep living and leading well. If you're a regular listener of the podcast, thank you. If you want to take a further step in your support for the show, you can help us grow by listening on Fountain, a value-for-value podcast app on iOS or Android. If you hear something you like that you disagree with or anything else, you can share it by sending some sats and adding a comment with your thoughts. Some of you have already done this, and I appreciate it. I'm going to begin reading your boosts on upcoming episodes, so if you have some insight or value to add, let the people know. Getting started with Fountain is easy. You can add Bitcoin to your Fountain wallet by using your fiat accounts or any Lightning wallet. And one of my favorite features is that once you're using the app, you can earn sats just by listening on Fountain. Check out the link in the show notes to get started with Fountain today.